Good morning, Wednesday, January 21st. I'm Jim Check. With me, Ian Burns, and this is the Really Big Show. Please like, share, subscribe, do all those cool things, ring the bell, do all those things. And a big thank you to Sausage Rolls. Somebody literally dropped sausage rolls off for us yesterday, and our guy on the tech there just wolfed one down. I couldn't even get a picture of it before he sent 4 sausage rolls, and so there you go. Thank you very much for the actual sausage rolls that showed up and for all the people that actually donate money for sausage rolls. And if you're not sure what we're talking about when we talk sausage rolls, you watch this show enough, you'll see why. We are the sausage roll media, I guess. Well, the other ones are the sausage roll media. But we've got lots today. And I mean, we really do have a really big show, and there's lots going on. The big headline, Canada lives because of the United States. EB promises a better tomorrow for forestry as the BC Conservatives get ready for a new leader. And 365 days of Trumplandia. If we're not on the table, we're on the menu. Middle powers to band together. EU calls it an opportunity for independence. Carney called a globalist in interview. Who are the threats? Carney seems to just miss out on China and mentions Russia. And reaction to Carney's speech, lots of reaction. And who was he speaking to? That's a better question. Canada gives till it hurts to Ukraine. Trudeau gets thrown to the wolves by his former servants. Wow. Media ramps up fear campaigns. Come on, Jolie. She's taking over for Gary today. Pardons at the discretion of ministers. Wouldn't that be nice? And in the United States, only the president gets to do pardons. We're going to give that discretion to ministers. Face in the trough, money. Who cares? It's just taxpayer money. No budget for whistleblowers. Imagine that. Military wants influence on your kids. Carney says judge them at the grocery store. China makes green sales pitch. Trump says EU failed on energy, immigration, and on its people. Climate extremism is dead, but Carney needs it to live. Greenland, that block of ice that everybody seems to be up in arms about. Energy is everything, and the mother of all deals. And Democrats turn on their party. And a year later for Trump. And Canada seems confused on whether to join the Board of Peace. All that and a lot more. I mean, it's a really big show. That's why we call it the Really Big Show. And a big tip of the hat to Ed Sullivan and the Really Big Show. If we could ever get the Beatles on here, that might be our launch point, hey? On the
Ringo's usually available, isn't he? See if we can get him on.
Thank you to all the regulars that tune in. Yesterday we had a record 2,800 live as we were going, so that was pretty impressive. I'm going to try and break that record again today. So again, comment, let us know where you're watching from, and we love the regulars that are here showing up every day. Faith there, morning peeps. Good morning, Faith. And Faith contributed yesterday as well. Again, like, share, and subscribe. But let's tear right into it. But let's, it's Davos. And if you're going to go to Davos, you got to get the poster boy for Davos. We're going to just listen to Dr. Davos himself. You can make up your own name for him, but he's going to give you a few seconds of why a lot of people don't like the WEF.
The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room. We have the means to improve the state of the world.
There you go, just a bunch of elitists in the room that are deciding the future for all. Hey, did everybody feel more comfortable now? Everybody feel
Do you know
good?
that there is such a service that you can buy for somebody like that? It would be pennies, be nothing, called accent reduction. You can do that. You can just get a speech therapist who specializes in it, and they chill out your accent a bit. People do it quite a lot, actually, especially in English-speaking countries when they come from places like Germany. I just find it so interesting that he's just said, "Mine, I will continue to speak like this," and it's even when the memes intensified, and it's like, all right, Klaus, this is becoming a weak point for us. I think like you've got to chill it out a little bit. But he said no, and he continues to do it. I mean, you got to respect him for that, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, it really sounds bad when you say the people in the room will make the decisions for the people of the world. I don't think a lot of people like that,
But
especially if
imagine if that
you're
was
not in the
delivered
room.
in soft, posh English tones. Well, that's a bit sinister as well, isn't it? Or if it was just delivered in, I don't know, Aussie or something. So you could be like, you know what, mates? We're gonna integrate.
Or
It
maybe if
wouldn't be so offensive, would
in a Dr. Bonnie Henry tone, where she would just make it sound like
it?
you're
Yeah,
doing her a favor.
like a bedtime story.
Donald Trump took to the stage this morning, got a standing ovation as he walked in. I mean, a lot of people are bragging about Carney's standing ovation, but Trump, obviously, the powers recognized. I don't think he got a big standing ovation when he finished, though, but he got one as he walked into the room. And we're just going to play, there'll be clips throughout here today, but this is where he directs his remarks straight at Canada.
We're building a golden dome that's going to, just by its very nature, going to be defending Canada. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your Prime Minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. But they should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
Mark left like Elvis. Mark left the building before Donald Trump showed up, though.
That was, for all of the hype about Mark Carney's speech, I think overhyped. I've read it again now. Much better to read it, by the way, than to listen to it, because he doesn't really have any charisma, does he? So you're actually much better off reading it and sort of getting it in your own head and thinking about what he said. Massively overhyped, I'd say. But I mean, we said most of what we needed to say about that yesterday, I think. But interesting that Trump, in one sentence, pretty much, maybe two sentences, Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements. Two sentences. He kind of said more, and it was more powerful than the entirety of Mark Carney's pseudo-intellectual speech, which was full of contradictions and full of ridiculousness, the heart of which, the very heart and core of that ridiculousness of his speech, was Canada lives because of the United States, just expressed in one sentence by Donald Trump. This is, I mean, I'm not a great fan of Donald Trump, as people probably are aware, but that is an extraordinary gift for language. You just have to concede, even though it's quite vulgar. It's not exactly John Keats, is it? But it's still how succinctly has he just slapped down the entirety of Mark Carney's verbose speech? Remarkable. Just, you have to concede, even if you despise him. You've got to concede. Like, that is almost like a supernatural gift that he has. But yeah, I just think it's almost like that speech was his attack, was Carney's attack. This was Trump's defense, and it's just completely neutralized it as far as I'm aware. Because he put him back in his place. Like, remember that, Mark, next time you talk. It's just like, I pay your salary. I look after you. I put a roof over your head kind of thing. It's like the ultimate argument killer, isn't it? It's like Daddy said that. Daddy said to the petulant child, don't forget who pays your bills. Don't forget whose house you sleep in.
And then ask yourself the question as we go through some of these clips here. Who was Mark Carney's speech to, and what kind of audience is it to? And who was Donald Trump's speech to? And if you listen, I listened to both full speeches of both of them. And I'll say that Trump spoke more to the people that he represents, like the vast people and the stuff that he did. I mean, other than the stuff on the European Union. But he spoke about the European Union people. But Mark Carney spoke to the elites in the room. It was a speech about the elites and about middle powers. We're going to listen. Let's listen to him talk about the middle powers here. Let's listen in.
This rupture calls for more than adaptation. It calls for honesty about the world as it is. We are taking the sign out of the window. We know the old order is not coming back. We shouldn't mourn it. Nostalgia is not a strategy. But we believe that from the fracture, we can build something bigger, better, stronger, more just. This is the task of the middle powers. The countries that have the most to lose from a world of fortresses and a most to gain from genuine cooperation. The powerful have their power, but we have something too. the capacity to stop pretending, to name reality, to build our strength at home, and to act together. That is Canada's path. We choose it openly and confidently, and it is a path wide open to any country willing to take it with us. Thank you very much.
Globalization failed. Let's make a new globalization, basically, is what I got from that there. And also, no recognition, neither from him or from nor from Gideon Rackerman, who interviewed him on the stage. No recognition that Mark Carney, he's talking about this sign in the window. Mark Carney made that sign. That's got his copyright on it. It's all his. Listen to his speeches about Brexit, for example. He is that guy. He invented the slogan and he created the sign and put it in the window and he maintained it and he shamed people. He tried to humiliate people and degrade people that said much of what he's saying now. I mean, it's just so difficult to swallow. It's very, very, very hard to swallow. And also the fact that he keeps referring to Canada as a middle power. Is it possible to be a middle power without a military? Like I've asked this question before. I'm not convinced that it is. A middle power, that suggests that you have like a little bit of a military, doesn't it? Some kind of ability to defend yourself. What use is it being a middle power if Luxembourg could invade tomorrow and conquer your country?
And then also, what is getting done? That's the bigger thing. What is getting done? You talk about this and how Canada can survive on its own and do all these things, but what's getting done? Where's the pipeline? Where is the pipeline? Like nothing's getting done, and we're going to see some of that later on here, but it's a lot of ramping people up to kind of get this middle power here. But we got one more clip from him here. Let's play this other one here first.
Middle powers must act together because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. But I'd also say that great powers can afford for now to go it alone. They have the market size, the military capacity, and the leverage to dictate terms. Middle powers do not. But when we only negotiate bilaterally with a hegemon, we negotiate from weakness. We accept what's offered. We compete with each other to be the most accommodating. This is not sovereignty. It's the performance of sovereignty while accepting subordination. In a world of great power rivalry, the countries in between have a choice: compete with each other for favor, or to combine to create a third path with impact. We shouldn't allow the rise of hard power to blind us to the fact that the power of legitimacy, integrity, and rules will remain strong if we choose to wield them together.
Just letting that stink up the room. I mean, my initial comment there, which it's almost too sort of prosaic, isn't it, to even highlight. Everybody probably caught this and heard this, but he said bilateral deals or bilateral negotiations with hegemons is the sort of fast road to doom, basically, is what he said. This coming from a man who literally just negotiated a bilateral deal with China, one of two hegemons on the planet. The other hegemon, the United States, he's trying to negotiate in what might as well be a bilateral arrangement, because it's not like Mexico and Canada have much leverage together. Well, they do, but they don't, not quite what they might think. And they never work together anyway. There is no Canadian-Mexican relationship really to speak of. So why is he telling people not to do things 5 minutes after he's just done them himself? I mean, did he even think? Did he even think about that when he wrote that? Did he write that? Did somebody else write it for him? Did they think before they wrote that?
Here's the other question to ask yourself. It's almost a year now. And the deals that he's made, he's got two that he's touting right now, China and Qatar, or Qatar, whatever you want to pronounce it. Two nations that are basically toxic to most people. And where's the deal with the UK? Where's the deal with France? Where, Spain's asked us for LNG. Where's that deal? Do you know what I mean? Where are the deals that matter? Why have you just run to two nations, Qatar? Like, who runs to Qatar for a deal? And both of those, the big question is, you seem to be doing deals where Brookfield is there with massive investments. That's the bigger question. Is this Mark Carney representing Brookfield, or is this Mark Carney representing Canada? Because if I had to pick two nations to do deals with, I surely wouldn't pick China and Qatar first on the list. Why not France? Why not Spain? Why not the UK? Especially, why not the United States of America? Makes no sense
Well,
to
the
me.
rest of those, I mean, the rest of those, they don't matter. They're extras in the movie. Even China is an extra. China maybe has one line in the movie called Canada. Really, the Canadian movie is Canada in dialogue with the United States for 90 minutes of screen time, and then China pops in and says, "How you doing, lads?" That's Canada's story. That's Canada's movie, and yet you're talking about the UK and France and all that. These are just like blips on the horizon that you barely see them. They're pretty much irrelevant to Canada. So I mean, I know he says, and his defender said that's the problem. Like we need to get away from that. Yeah, people have been saying that for a very long time. But if you're concentrating your energy on these, pipsqueaks while ignoring the protagonist in the drama, it just doesn't really seem to make a lot of sense. But I mean, I get the feeling that he's doing this, and this speech included. It's all part of Mark Carney's campaign to influence Donald Trump, and the Americans. It's part of the deal-making strategy. It all folds in together, and it's all the same thing, and it all comes down to flexing and trying to get the best deal with the Americans. And that's been the case. Almost every single thing that Mark Carney has done has been about the Americans. Even if he's been in China, for example, it's about America, as it should be, as it has to be.
We got a little bit here from Ursula von der Leyen.
Political shocks can and must serve as an opportunity for Europe. And in my view, the seismic change we are going through today is an opportunity, in fact, a necessity, to build a new form of European independence. And this need is neither new nor a reaction to recent events, but the truth is also that we will only be able to capitalize on this opportunity if we recognize that this change is permanent. Of course, nostalgia is part of our human story, but nostalgia will not bring back the old order. And playing for time and hoping for things to revert soon will not fix the structural dependencies we have. So my point is, if this change is permanent, then Europe must change permanently too.
That's good. Did Mark Carney and Ursula sit down together and write their speeches together? Because they sure have a lot of similar language in there.
It's also interesting, this tweet that you've highlighted. It is quite interesting. I mean, it looks like, I assume that this is like an anti-Trump account or something like that. But it's saying, "I cannot tell you just how significant this speech is," by Ursula von der Leyen. No, actually, because she's made this same speech dozens of times. I've listened to them. So has Emmanuel Macron. Emmanuel Macron he's made this speech, probably it's in like three figures how many times he's made this exact speech, and nothing has happened. Nothing ever happens with the Europeans. They will not take the hint. And this, if you read on in this tweet in many ways is more interesting than Ursula von der Leyen's nonsense. But if you look at that, where she's the tweeter, the X user, is talking about the debt that the Europeans hold, so like American bonds, and then says, who supplies 75% of America's insulin? That would be Denmark. And talking about Ozempic and things like that. I mean, for so many reasons, this is stupid. One is, where do you think these companies make their money? Like Europe might be large, but it's not the biggest consumer market. China might be large, but it's not the world's biggest consumer market. It's the US. That's where you make all your money. The fortunes of these great European capitalists are most often made in the United States. So do you think that they would voluntarily withdraw from their primary market? That's one thing. But another thing, do you want to declare war on the United States like that, a trade war, with this volatile president who defends your continent from China and Russia and all the other baddies. I think he's will be quite grateful for an excuse to withdraw from NATO. It seems to be his approach. Why would they do that? It's just such a foolish tweet. And I know this is just some clown on Twitter and it doesn't necessarily represent anything, but I do think that this is a good representation actually of a lot of the arguments that I've heard. And going through the European Parliament right now is this this motion to kill the trade deal with the Americans that they just signed. I mean, that's not clever, I don't think. I think that's going to hurt Europe. And then there's also talk of their bazooka, their trade bazooka. If they go ahead with that, I would worry for our European friends because I don't think that they can survive that kind of thing.
And thank you to whoever dropped the sausages off yesterday. I missed that. I didn't, when somebody said, "Hey, we dropped sausages," I didn't know that that's what you meant. We do thank you for the sausages again. We appreciate that.
Oh, this person saying they came from Dawson Creek. That's how far you've got to go to get the proper sausage roll, and they do look like very good.
Yeah, Ian can't have one because he's out there in Ottawa there, but they were good and we appreciate them and everybody that contributes as well. If you like what we do, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and you also consider contributing to independent media. That would be appreciated. And again, thank you for the sausage rolls. We're definitely going to make t-shirts on the sausage rolls there because they've earned some sausages at CBC this past few days, so has CTV. But Mark Carney, after his speech, he sat down and he got asked if he considers himself a globalist. Listen to his answer.
Trump and a lot of people who agree with him condemn globalism a lot. And I suspect, you would be the kind of epitome of a globalist. You worked for Goldman Sachs, I believe. You were a central banker. You're comfortable and lived in several countries. Is globalism, first of all, is it a thing? And is it over?
I think, look, understanding how the world works, having an appreciation for other cultures, understanding the connections, and being able to, or at least appreciating ways that how we connect, whether it's through technology, trade, investment, culture, can enrich our lives, and that's a good thing, and also help solve problems. Being detached from where you live and the broader needs of society, there is an epithet for that. I don't know that the G word is the one. There's certainly what we're finding, to go back to the points I was making, is that there are a number of like-minded countries that want to work through partnership to achieve those goals for their citizens and for the world more broadly. The call is for more to recognize what's really going on right now, and to pool their resources to the benefit of citizens. So it won't be global, it won't cover the globe, but it will be more powerful.
Okay, Prime Minister.
That's good. That's good. So now he's not even he can't say the word globalist. That's the G word. He's scared to say it because of he said it before. He said, "I'm a globalist," and it's pretty obvious, right? He was a foundation member of the WEF. He was a foundation member of the WEF. Chrystia Freeland was on there as a director, and he still contributes work there, authors articles for the WEF. And again, it sounds like he wants this globalism to survive. A lot of the globalists there are actually really angry that Donald Trump has pulled globalism and said it's dead. And then we're going to hear from a few of the American representatives there that basically said globalism dead, and what they did to their countries is through globalism have ruined their countries. And it'd be hard to argue, because if you look at Canada's policies over the past 11 years, it'd be hard to argue that it's a success story. Who could make the argument that Canada has been a success over the past 11 years? Other than lightning rod, but I don't know what
I think
stats to back it up, but
a defender of globalization, internationalism, globalism, whatever the hell you want to call it, a defender would say Canada could have been a major beneficiary of globalization in the last 10 years if it had had wise leadership. I would be inclined to agree with that. But there are massive costs associated with globalization. Not least of all, I mean, we're going to talk about the military, I guess, later and this supposed modeling for a US invasion. But one of the ways that globalization has caused damage is that it erodes the identity of your country to the point where you have to ask the question seriously about Canada, about Germany, about even France, the British. You have to ask the question, if there was a war, who would fight for it? Because what is the country? Like what is Britain to the average fighting age man in the United Kingdom? What is Britain? Is it an economic region? Is it a GDP? Like what is it? Because they've eroded their values and what everything is unique about them to such an extent that people are sat there like with question marks. They don't know. And whenever they ask the leaders, like Justin Trudeau, for example, what is it that makes a Canadian? Not being American. That was one of the things he said. And then also said diversity, inclusion, and the rest of that stuff. That doesn't mean anything. And I think that there's a much more nuanced, complex conversation to be had about globalization. I think both Mark Carney and Gideon Rachman, the interviewer, were playing silly buggers there. Absolutely. Of course, yeah, globalization exists. Of course, Mark Carney is a globalist. If that word means anything at all, it means him. I mean, obviously. And it also means Gideon Rachman and the Financial Times, the newspaper that Chrystia Freeland used to work for as well. You just mentioned her, and organizations like the World Economic Forum. It's so ironic that they're asking this question, like, does globalization exist? And behind them, they've got the World Economic Forum logo. It's like, yeah, it does. And you're in the headquarters right now.
And thanks to Charles again, made another donation. Thank you, Charles. Charles has been our #1 donator. That's absolutely.
Maybe we should replace our king with this Charles.
There you go. He might do a better job than that, Charles.
Yeah, I think so. Well, he's out and about a bit more. He's got more to say than the king.
One more clip here from Mr. Carney here on. They ask him who the threat is. And remember when he was running for the election that China was the biggest security threat. But listen how he skates past that one.
And when President Trump says, oh, Greenland's under threat from Russia, even from China, is that for real?
I would say that there are Russia is without question a threat in the Arctic, without question. Russia does lots of horrible things, and I'll take the opportunity to condemn their unjustified and horrific assault on Ukraine, almost at its 4th year. They are a real threat in the Arctic, one against we need to protect, which is why we have 364 5-day air, sea, and land presence. It's why we're adding to our submarine fleet, adding to our air fighter fleet, why we're building out over-the-horizon radar to protect from Russian missile threats and others, and why we will work with our NATO partners. The threat is more prospective than actual at this stage in terms of actual activity in the Arctic, and we intend to keep it that way.
That's good. That's good. And thank you to JD Max for that contribution as well.
GD Max.
You notice how he did the head bobbing there on China. And he was like, like all of a sudden China's not a threat, even though they've claimed parts of the Arctic. That's odd.
And even though he said they are the greatest threat to Canada.
Those things.
They
Again,
used to be, not now.
How do you square that circle?
But also, how do you square? I mean, Carney is a man of unsquared circles, isn't he? He's the unsquared circle man. Because there's so much. He's going on about how he's got this really pragmatic foreign policy now. It's like, we don't have to like these people to do business with them and so on. He's like, full-blown Castlereagh or like Palmerston. He's like going back to the 19th century and what made the British Empire so powerful. Apparently, so he's trying to give us that impression, and yet still, Russia is just like this, irretrievable evil. It's just this like demon that must be resisted at all costs. If you really are like this full-blown pragmatist, wouldn't we also do business with Russia? Wouldn't you go to Moscow now do a deal with Putin on something, an area of mutual interest, if there is such a thing. It's none of this makes any sense. And then China, obviously, he would retort, or his defenders, I think, would retort, no, we can't do business with Russia because they're a malign actor. They don't play by the rules. It's impossible to do deals with Vladimir Putin because he just destroys everything. He's a malefactor. And yet you've just gone to Beijing and done a deal with China. They're the same thing. They're just smarter and richer than Russia, you know? And in many ways, vastly more consequential. They do vastly more damage, as you yourself recognized during the last federal election when you said that they were the greatest threat to Canada.
And also
Like,
Qatar.
where is the
Qatar.
consistency? Like, he
True.
starts to make these very fancy knots, but he doesn't quite finish them off, does he? It's such a mess.
And then also, he's taken a loan from President Xi, basically himself, from the Bank of China. Those conflicts are real, and those aren't talked about. I mean, that would be the question if I was on stage. How do you manage all these conflicts? How do you still own stock in Brookfield, and then go to Qatar and China, where Brookfield has major dealings? It's how do you square that circle? It's a circle that's not being asked for sure.
And also, he's saying, like, in that speech, he basically said, we're out. Like, American hegemony no longer benefits us. We're not going to pretend that it does. Like, see you later. And yet, his personal fortune is basically dependent on the United States. I mean, Donald Trump said this in his big speech. He said, like, all you countries, like, you all depend on America for your prosperity, not just for your defense, but for your wealth. That's certainly true in the case of Mark Carney. So not only is it the case that Mark Carney sits in Ottawa safely now, today, right this minute, he is safe, physically safe, because of the United States Air Force and the NSA and the Space Force and all the rest of it. That is completely true, and what Donald Trump alluded to. But he's also a multi-millionaire because of the United States economy. That's where his personal money, the money that his kids will inherit when he dies, his family wealth, generational wealth, it's all traced back to the United States of America. This country that he's just written off is like, it's a goner. It's finished, guys. We middle powers need to huddle up and defend ourselves from the bad guy. There's no sense. There's no consistency. And I'm actually appalled. And I haven't looked at the document. I don't know if we're going to go on and talk about it, but I'm appalled by the rapturous response in the Canadian media, Canadian intelligentsia, if you could call it that.
We got a lot of it.
Yeah, to this speech, just like the greatest speech. Oh, like people are fainting at the profundity of Mark Carney. But it's just completely full of holes. There is no consistency. There's no sense to this. There's no logic to it.
Again, why did he borrow money from the Bank of China? Why didn't he borrow from the Americans? Because is Brookfield in that much trouble that it couldn't get a loan from somebody else? Like, why would you borrow money from the Bank of China? That's basically the CCP bank. That's not a Chinese bank. That's the Bank of China. You borrowed money, over $250 million from the Bank of China, and had a meeting with President Xi on that money. That's odd. And here's Mark Rutte here talking about, you all hate Trump, but look what he did. Let's listen in on him.
And here's my question to the audience. I mean, many of you, I know, criticize Donald Trump. But do you really think that without Donald Trump, 8 big economies in Europe, including Spain and Italy and Belgium, Canada, by the way, also outside Europe, would have come to 2%? In 2025, when they were only on 1.5% at the beginning of the year? No way. Without Donald Trump, this would never have happened. They're all on 2% now. Do you really think that in the summit in The Hague, as already Alex was saying, sorry, the president of Finland was saying, that, and here's my question.
He is so loyal, isn't he, Rutte? And yet, all he gets in return is text messages posted on Truth Social. He's not a very... He's a loyal servant, but he's not a beloved servant.
And here you go. Here's all the love. Here's best speech ever. This is CTV. This is their headline. Their best speech ever by a world leader in a very long time. Good job, CTV. Hey?
I guess, you were asking who the audience was. Liberal partisans, maybe? Double-digit IQ political commentators? I mean, it's not even about being a liberal partisan. It's about being an establishment partisan, isn't it? You got to understand that. Oh, it's my contention that the establishment, whatever that means, I know it's a vague term, the people with power and interest in Canada, the people who really control Canada. I think it's more important that they're a member of that than the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party is just a vehicle, obviously. That's kind of, I don't think they have any particular loyalty for the Liberal Party or love for the Liberal Party. But they are the ones who are so impressed by the speech. But they're also the ones who are impressed by everything Mark Carney does. Like, he can't put a foot wrong, can he, for them? Because I suppose he is their most charismatic, if you can say that about Mark Carney,
He's also the
member,
one
isn't he? He's the
filling,
face of that group.
he's also the one filling their trough. And sausage rolls on the way, I'm sure. A big bucket of sausage rolls for CTV. And here's Harrison Faulkner. Look at this, political commentator. Mark Carney's speech at Davos is the most important speech ever in this century.
He's a he's like I don't really know who this guy is, but I think he's like anti-liberal, isn't he? This guy?
No, he's yeah. Anyway, we got another one
Is
here.
he? I really thought this guy was like I've
Like,
seen his name around, but I don't know. Maybe I'm
here's,
all of
here's,
these Twitter people. I just lose track.
here's Vivian Burkovi. She writes for the National Post, and she's a little bit on the negative side there. And on CBC, actually, right? On the, CBC writing. In a riveting speech, Canada must work with like-minded allies. Yeah, CBC. Like, they have, like, buckets of sausage rolls right under the desk there. Mark Carney, I'm sorry, Rosie and David Cochrane can just reach down in the bucket, the endless supply of sausage rolls. Like, CTV has to beg for money. CBC just gets a supply of money.
I'm just sorry. I'm just going back to this Harrison guy, not with any new information about who he is, but it places Canada as the world's leading middle power.
Leading middle power?
What? Oh, it's sarcasm, says somebody. Okay. Well, that explains everything now. What's funny, if that's right, it is sarcasm. What's so funny is that the plausibility of it, because so many people have said exactly this.
Yeah.
I'm willing to believe that then, because I'm sure I've seen this guy like really attacking the Liberals in the past. Well, you got me, Harrison. Good lad.
And here's Michelle Rempel-Garner, the MP there, putting out this too. Havel would have demanded more from Mark Carney, and Canadians should too. And I mean, this is the point that we're making. Like, where is anything happening? Where's the good paying jobs? Where's the pipeline? Where's the pipeline? I mean, it took almost a year here to get no decision on a pipeline. When would we get a decision on a pipeline? Do you think when? Will it be at the end of his 4 years, or when would we get a decision whether Canada will build the pipeline? And I talked yesterday about mining. Like, the money is dried up for Canadian exploration companies. Like, I don't see the financings go through, and I watch that. And I just don't see it. So they talk about shovel ready, this, that, and another thing, but what's actually happening? All we see is photo ops and speeches.
Yeah, but have you seen the reviews? Have you seen the op-eds about the speeches, man? Like, come on, get your priorities right. But yeah, I mean, like I say, I read the speech again. So interesting to see him talk about the importance of being able to fuel yourself, like you supply your own energy and supply your own food. This is, I mean, I don't mean to sound like a snob here. People have been talking like this for at least 15 years. For Mark Carney to finally figure this out and dazzle the Canadian intelligentsia with this like very old and stale banal comment about needing to look after yourself. But anyway, he highlighted those things, and you have to think, okay, so that means the pipeline, the developments, energy, it's all forthcoming then. It's imminent. And not only that, but you're going to get rid of every needless obstacle in the way of achieving maximum energy output and food output, aren't you? Like the industrial carbon tax, that's gone, isn't it, surely? Net zero couldn't possibly be the case that if you type in Canada net zero into Google right now, it'll take you to the federal government's website where they tell you how Canada will produce net zero carbon emissions by the year 2050, even if we have to detonate a nuclear bomb in our economy.
And then
I mean, again, I have to say it again, where's the consistency? None of this makes any sense.
here's Robin Urbach from the Globe and Mail reposting Michelle Rempel Garner's piece. And it just, Mark Carney cannot simply return to Parliament and expect as he has passed for the past year, re-announcing. That's what those 12 projects, remember the 7 and the 5, they're all just rehashed projects that were almost done. And they're still not moving forward. So where are we at here? And then Brian Lilly putting out awful speech. But again, if you were listening to CBC and CTV and Global, you would have thought that this was probably like Canada's shining moment in the past year. If only photo ops, and if only we could put photo ops and speeches like this on the dinner table, Canadians would likely have to stop complaining about not being able to afford groceries.
But how ironic is it that Mark Carney referenced Václav Havel talking about the Soviet Union and how it was all words, it was all hollow, it was all empty. How ironic, like it's almost like it's a masterstroke or something. It's like he knows his biggest weakness, so he just dove straight in, and he's like, "Yep, I know this is my weakness." He's like rubbing himself in his own weakness, and people are still swallowing it apparently. But that's all he has. I mean, it's very reminiscent of the latter-day Soviet Union, where they talk about how glorious the workers' revolution is, and where they talk about the military and the economy. It's like, we're going to win in Afghanistan. We're going to beat the Americans. Like we've got everything going for us, as their economy collapsed, and they were obviously like a corpse of a culture. Many people have made the comparison between that, the Soviet Union, and the West now, as it kind of tells itself these stupid lies about, pick and choose. Net zero would be one thing. But here we have Mark Carney literally referencing Havel, criticizing the thing that he's doing. It's again, it's almost like this is something if you read about Russia, if you read about Russian media culture and political culture, like they've got a long history of trying to almost like bamboozle the people with brazen lies, like the most ridiculous lies, but nonetheless, sort of, they do affect your perception of reality, and it messes with reality to the extent that they can pretty much do what they want. It really it's reminiscent of that.
And then here's one list that we don't want to be on. We're the top contributor to Ukraine per capita. Let's listen in on this.
We have put the largest per capita amount of support, financial support towards Ukraine, military, economic, financial, infrastructure-related support at $22.5 billion for a country of 40 million, for a country of 40 million people.
And that's a gift for Chrystia Freeland's great management of Canada's finances. They've emptied the till here in Canada. And now Chrystia Freeland, who was the economic genius here, and now gets to go try her skills out in Ukraine as the economic advisor. It seems like a very...
Don't worry though, we've got loads of money, mate.
Hey,
we might be given the most per capita, but have you seen the IMF's latest GDP per capita statistics? We're doing really good, actually. If we talk about per capita, we're loaded here in Canada. We can give even more.
And let's remind everybody that there is going to be no oversight on that money that we've sent to Ukraine for national security reasons. And the Liberals come up with all kinds of reasons that you don't. We're going to show you some stories later that are just going to blow your mind, and how they don't wish to disclose any of that information. They say it's confidential. It's your taxpayer dollars. But hey, you don't get to know where it's spent, because like it's just less and less transparency, less and less access for the press, and more sausage rolls for the government-funded media that is doing the bidding for the Liberal Party. And here's Howard Lutnick on why globalization is a failed policy.
Well, I think you should start at a much higher level.
Okay.
Okay? We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty on any other nation. And if you're going to be dependent on someone, it darn well better be your best allies. Okay? And so that is a different way of thinking. It is completely different than the WEF. I viewed the WEF as not a flagpole in the middle, but in fact, they are the flag. Whichever way the wind blew, so it blew. You should have solar, you should have wind. Why are you going to do solar and wind? Why would Europe agree to be net zero in 2030 when they don't make a battery? They don't make a battery. So if they go 2030, they are deciding to be subservient to China, who makes the batteries.
Can't deny that, can you?
He just walked in the room and slapped everybody on stage and everybody in the room that is big globalists. And even it was a UN-funded report there that said Canada is basically engaging in modern-day slavery with all this, the immigration that went on here. Tim Hortons and A&W using the temporary foreign workers to ask Canadians to subsidize their wages so that less health care and higher rents and all that, so they didn't have to pay their workers more money. So they make you a cup of coffee and a hamburger.
Mm-hmm.
We've and all the offshoring, yeah, all the jobs went somewhere else. China took them all. I mean, China gladly took all the offshoring that happened and then stole all the technology. How much IP has China stolen? They are basically the
everything. Everything.
Stolen everything.
And they'll keep on doing it.
And now they have them at the begging bowl. We're going to show you a story later. You got to stick around for it. They're going to show you a story later how they're now pitching climate agenda because they have nobody else to sell solar panels to and the wind things to. And we're going to show you that later.
Sat next to Howard Lutnick is Rachel Reeves, the finance minister, chancellor they call it, of Britain. It's so funny to see that. This is why the Trump administration is just like top entertainment value, really, because you got Howard Lutnick there, just completely sharting, let's say, couldn't find a verb there, a clean verb, all over the British government's net zero policies and just every other policy, really, including immigration and all that. And she's just sat there like in agony, just like, yeah. And then Champagne was next to her, our finance minister. And then next to Howard Lutnick on the other side is Adam Tooze, who is actually an excellent economic historian, really, really good historian. I very strongly recommend his books, especially about the First World War. But he is a radical lefty critic of Donald Trump and the Trump administration, like, to the point where he kind of has lost his mind a little bit. If you look at his tweets and his latest utterances, and he's just sat there like mortified. He's like, it's I just, I think we should be grateful to have the opportunity just to see that, because these conferences used to be so boring. It just used to be like everybody agreed. It was just all like
virtue
Adam
signaling,
Tooze.
all virtue signaling. Yeah,
they were all the same.
How you suffer. Well, the elites decide on. But I'm going to ask you to consider another thing, with people listening. He speaks in common plain language, and it's to the point. You understand what he's saying. You absolutely understand what he's saying. You can go watch Carney's speech. You have no clue most of the time as to what he's saying. They speak around in circles, and it's basically, you know, like a lot of those speeches are, we need to give more power to the elites so they can decide what is a better way forward. They'll be the ones flying around in planes and cars, and that you need to do with less. Whereas this is, again, speaks right to the middle class. It speaks to most of their people in their nation. That's what Canada needs right now too. We need somebody that looks after the middle class and everybody and the lower class, because they're not getting looked after. That tax cut there is $11 for the lower class, and the middle class is about $200. It's all about elitism. When we look at the wealth gap that's happening here in Canada, and you look at the separation, and we're going to show you some of the stats later here. And he speaks to the people. He speaks to the people. Look at Trump's speech. He speaks to the people. Carney speaks to the room. He speaks to the global elitist, and he speaks to the media that is basically just like, you know, living off of the Canadian taxpayer, living off the Canadian taxpayer, living off of you. And then look at this. The old master now being attacked by his old servants. Listen to this as they throw him to the wolves because he is now no longer needed. And they have to trample on him to prop up their new master. Let's listen in on this.
About 2.5 minutes, Jason. Your down is related to former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his appearance at Davos alongside Katy Perry. What is your thoughts on this one?
Speaking of strange guests at parties,
yeah.
It was such an interesting bit of e-talk news counter-programming to have Justin Trudeau, the former prime minister, there speaking. I mean, normally, you know, him speaking at, you know, a former prime minister speaking at a Davos event, completely normal on the margins or whatever, talking about soft power. But he came with his girlfriend, big celebrity, and I know sometimes they like to meet these big celebrities there, but it's an interesting thing. I was looking around online for versions of his speeches. Of his speech that he gave about soft power. None of those, but a whole bunch of headlines about Katy Perry. If there's any reminder of how different what we have as Prime Minister now and what we have as Prime Minister this time last year is, wow.
Yeah, Marty, it's been a remarkable shift in, I don't know, everything. Just your thoughts on this.
That's good.
What's Anna Cochrane like? They've really got him with the sausage rolls, haven't they? He's changed. Even in the last year, he's changed.
Yeah. He used to try to be a little unbiased. Not even a little bit now. But look, he was basically the servant of Justin Trudeau in the past. And now he's basically like they've thrown poor Justy to the wolves. Justin's got nobody other than Katy Perry. I watched the Rebel News chasing him down the street there. We got a little bit of it here. Let's play a little bit here. Watch Katy Perry's face. It's the best. That's the best part of this whole clip here.
Mr. Trudeau, what are you doing here at Davos?
No comment.
How come you never comment? This is the spirit of dialogue is the name of the conference. How come you won't dialogue, Prime Minister?
You're not getting into the spirit of dialogue here. Look at that.
Who paid for you to come here? Was it taxpayers? What do you make of the Federal Court of Appeal upholding the ruling that your martial law was illegal? They said you violated.
It's good to see you, Ezra. It's been a long time. How you been? How you been keeping?
Pretty well. But
you can go find that yourself, and you can watch that whole thing. But Katy Perry actually ends up leaving him at some point there because she's had enough.
I haven't actually watched the whole thing. Is it just small talk then?
He tries to get some answers, and Trudeau speaks at him, and that's what Ezra says. And then actually Ezra changes his tack a little bit and gets a few things, but nothing of any value. But
so Trudeau won.
His speech, his speech not carried in a lot of places. I think it was like in some back coffee house somewhere. I don't know.
It's like to 100 people, I think. They said on the margins. That's how they described it.
Yeah. So Katy Perry there, not looking impressed. That was the best part of the whole thing. Katy Perry is just like, why am I with this?
I love how they seem to have like 3 cameras or something set up, didn't they? Rebel. It's clearly like a real set piece for them.
They had the tall blonde girl there as the blocker, right? That was trying to run interference there, pushing and stuff.
Yeah. But no, just to go back to CBC there. I can't help myself, but I often compare the present to the past, and it's very similar to if you read any sort of court history, going back even to the Roman Empire, you read the court history of, I don't know, just an example, somebody like Commodus or something like that. History's written then. You even see kind of like declarations. It will be a repudiation and a condemnation of whoever came before. You see, I mean, that's probably not the best example of about Commodus because he succeeded his own dad. But anyway, you look at in medieval times, for example, they would do this. They would repudiate the predecessor, particularly if the predecessor was unpopular, certainly. And we're seeing this. We're just seeing the modern version of the repudiation and sort of degradation, debasement of the predecessor as a way to prop up and celebrate and bolster the current power, the current force, the current leader. And like every day that we do this pretty much, and we sort of look at the underbelly of power, I feel the same thing. It's just like human nature really, truly doesn't change. And that is, I know that's a cliche, but it's interesting to have it confirmed.
Well, the fear machine is hard at work here. They've got the media here in Canada is ready to go. And it says the Canadian Armed Forces have worked out a model of hypothetical invasion of Canada by the United States, according to reports. The first time such a framework has been created in a century. The outcome, Canada would be overcome in as little as 2 days and would afterwards rely on hit and run tactics like Islamic radicals in Afghanistan against Soviet invaders. 2 days would be stretching it, I think.
Yeah, I agree. But the biggest stretch, they're relying on guerrilla tactics. What did the Mujahideen in Afghanistan and then later the Taliban, what did they have that we don't have? Spot the difference. What did they have? A fanatical, extraordinary loyalty to their group. Not just the religion, but the clan system, the land even. You know, a really motivation so powerful, loyalty so powerful and dominating that they were willing to kill themselves. They were willing to literally to go and blow themselves up if it would help their cause. Do we have that in Canada today, do you think? Would you think there would be people up there in Iqaluit ready to blow themselves up to destroy an American tank or something like that? I don't think so.
This story is absolutely ludicrous. Like, it's not going to happen. It's absolutely just, and who's it for then? Who's it for? A few of the boomers that watched that show we showed, that lady, the crazy lady, they got a gun and they're getting ready to fight the Americans. You'd end up fighting some other Canadians because there's likely to be a parade in the streets in some areas. Like, people have to.
Yeah, that poll showed that there would be something like 20% of the population would celebrate it and welcome the Americans, which is
most of that would be the youth, the people that have the ability to fight, not the old people. I mean, this article is for who? The boomers, to make sure that they're entrenched with Mark Carney. Is this what it's for? This is ridiculous. It's absolute ridiculous stuff. That we go to sleep every night under the protection of the Americans, and then we're putting this garbage out. We're putting this out. The last time there was 2 incursions on the west coast of Canada by unidentified flying airplanes that we had to scramble jets for. It was the Americans that responded because the Canadian ones were still sitting on the tarmac, couldn't fire them up. So get real.
But quite like I said earlier, the only thing, I mean, you could complicate this and say there's a few other things, but at the end of the day, the only reason that an ICBM isn't landing on Mark Carney's head right now, or the last sort of obstacle to that happening, is the United States of America, their military. Their, the NSA, they have, I can't remember the name of the organization that they have, where they detect rocket flare anywhere in the world using satellites. So they know if a ballistic missile has been fired. All that stuff, that's what keeps literally Mark Carney, our leader, safe and happy as he sits in Ottawa. Otherwise, theoretically at least, a country like North Korea, Russia, could just take him out. It could theoretically happen. So, I mean, you can't overstate how reliant we are on the Americans. It's not possible to overstate it. They are our military. They are our soldiers.
And then this one even highlights more. Somewhat awkwardly, given the above, British magazine The Economist has reminded the world that many Canadian military personnel not just aligned with the U.S. counterparts, but quite literally fighting side by side, taking their orders. This article focuses on Canadian personnel potentially involved in the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolas, we got to do it right, Nicolas Maduro. CNN, are you proud of us? Nicolas Maduro. Blowing up.
Nicolas, you got to put the emphasis on the A where the accent is. Nicolas Maduro.
Oh, I see. I'm not good enough for that CNN.
If you want to be authentic.
Blowing up suspected drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean, providing support for immigration and customs for ICE. The Economist explains how the military staff routinely set the U.S. on exchange programs. There was a time you could actually join the American Army, too, as a Canadian. I'm not sure if that's still around there. Maybe somebody can tell us, but there was a time when I was a younger lad, you could actually join the American military. Because guess what? Nobody's joined the Canadian military. 55,000 troops we have. So 2 days, that's stretching it. Like what? We can't get the jets off the ground. The submarines don't work. The Coast Guard doesn't have any weapons. They advertise they don't want any weapons. So we don't have any aircraft carriers. Well, we don't have any aircraft to put on the aircraft carriers.
Got some noisy subs.
Would we ask the Americans to defend? And maybe we would with the Democrats. We would ask the Americans to defend Canada against the Americans, I guess. Or maybe China. We would ask China to defend against the Americans. Like some lunacy.
Maybe Iran could give us a few drones or something. And
then we're going to get into the better part of our regular part of the news. This is a little piece left of Davos here with Melanie Joly. Melanie. Come on, Melanie.
Looking at building the next generation of cars, EVs and autonomous vehicles. We will have a very strong focus on that. We also have an approach to attract capital through major projects, infrastructure, so ports, mining projects, conventional and renewable energy. And also, we have a new defense industrial strategy coming up. We will invest $81 billion over the next 5 years to build our sector, to build the planes, the drones, the AI, etc. And finally, we're working on attracting talent.
Minister, I mean, partly this is really a reaction.
That's good. Like, that's painful.
Again, it gives me the impression of a high school student being interviewed by the local paper or something. Like, what's your project about? Well, first and then we're going to attract talent, and we spend a lot of money on defense. It's just, this does not instill.
Everything's always about plans.
And I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Everything's about plan. We're planning to plan. We're planning to meet. We're meeting to meet.
The working groups, they're being set up.
Everything is always about planning to plan. Where's actually time? Doug Ford, if he watched that, he's got to be losing his mind. The auto sector, I mean, if they're meeting in the head offices of Ford and GM right now and say Canada's lost for them. I mean, they're opening up the doors to EV mandates and the Chinese automobiles. I'm sure they're saying this is it. This is all we needed to hear. Thank you for nothing. And then where's the mining? Where's the capital flow? And again, Melanie Joly, here's a hint for you, Melanie, if you listen to this. I know some of you listen, so listen to this, Melanie. If you're wondering how to attract capital to Canada, he sits beside you most of the time. Ask Mark Carney why he took his capital, Brookfield, why he took it to the United States. And why is like over 90% of his investments in the United States. If we can't attract him, who's running the show, he's literally running the show here. He's the most powerful man here in Canada. And we can't seem to attract his capital. We can't seem to attract his capital. That's an easy
When
question.
he was in charge, yeah.
just look at him and say, if we can't get you to invest, and I used to say this to people in the company, I used to say, like, if we're not using it, why would anybody else use it? Like, why do you think anybody else would use it? If we can't get the guy in charge that runs the show to invest here, why would anybody else? Of course, we can get Qatar and all them, like these crazy countries, because they're just looking for a door because nobody else will give them access. But absolutely.
But also, like, what was Carney's defense to that, other than the ridiculous aspect of his defense, which was some of those people I helped were Canadian. But his defense was we needed to be closer to capital markets, and he basically said in so many words, he said, I was batting for Brookfield then, so I was trying to get the best deal for them. Now I'm batting for Canada. That's kind of what he said. You would think, wouldn't you, if that's the case, that's where you get the best deal. You're in charge now. Why don't you change the arrangement in Canada so that it's no longer that obvious that America's the better deal? And give these big companies these big CEOs, give them at least a second's pause where they can think, oh yeah, actually Canada might be better, or it might be better if we keep our headquarters here, kind of. But none of that happened. So he went from being a CEO, like it was literally like months or weeks apart, wasn't it? He went from being a CEO where he made that decision to then being prime minister. You would think, wouldn't you, in that scenario, the first thing that you'd do is, all right, I'm going to change the law so that in future, a CEO of a company like Brookfield would not make that decision. They would stay in Canada, or they would expand in Canada.
And you would have fixed the tax dodging already too. You would have fixed that loophole because you used the loophole. You know what the loophole is? $6.5 billion. You would have fixed it by now, just with a stroke of a pen. And Lightning Rod is trying to do his things now.
Well, Lightning Rod here just said there's a ton of money headed toward Canada.
In a
I
boat?
know that you might like the sound of that, but we do have statistics. There is such a thing as statistics.
In a boat?
Collected officially by official bodies such as Statistics Canada, and it shows that what you said is in fact the opposite of the truth. Canada's losing capital.
Well, here's the one that is very, very troubling, and Elizabeth May is getting some attention on this. And this is the one that is absolutely ridiculous, and you have to wonder why they would want this deal, especially with what we're making partners with China and Qatar now, and all the stuff that Brookfield's going to do. Listen to this here. Listen to Elizabeth May.
Elizabeth May and I don't agree on a lot of things, but we do agree that it is insane to give individual cabinet ministers the power to secretly exempt any individual or corporation from almost any federal law. Take a listen.
One section of the enormous Bill C-15, over 600 pages of omnibus budget bill, that's not yet been even mentioned in this place, and it wasn't mentioned in the budget either. So the idea that the Budget Implementation Act just implements things in the budget is belied by pages 301 to 304, with it exempt at ministerial discretion the application of Canadian law to any entity, which could be people or corporations, at the discretion of the minister with no public oversight. Can anyone here, particularly the Minister of Finance, explain?
Canadians should be paying attention. The Liberal government is proposing a massive power grab, one that would allow Cabinet to quietly exempt people or corporations from almost federal law without transparency, accountability, and without Parliament knowing. And that should disturb every Canadian, regardless of the party. No government should have the power to place itself above the law. And that's why I've launched a petition to say no. No to the Liberal power grab, because we need to protect the rule of law here in Canada and to stop.
That has got to be one of the most scary things. Like, that's like giving somebody a pardon. You can go ahead and break laws and you won't be held accountable. And why would you need it? Like this is what's coming with this green stuff. We're going to like trample on different things, do different things, like ethics, all that stuff gets thrown out because there's always should be accountability. But this takes away.
And there's so many, this is like, it's obviously a trend, isn't it? It's not unique to this particular area. This is something that Carney he's really put it into the system, hasn't he? He's embedded it into the system. And it's interesting that Elizabeth May is there, furious, like some
every
nutcase
MP
in the street, considering she, as far as she was concerned, she rescued the Liberal government from collapse with by voting with the Liberals on the budget.
Every MP with a conscience should vote no against this. This is absolutely ridiculous. And that's it for Lightning Rod today. You want to put Lightning Rod on silence, because we are an accredited news organization. So if you're just going to come here and stir the pot, then you won't be welcome here, Lightning Rod.
So. Not our dear precious Rod.
Yeah.
No.
But, okay. There you go. And then here's another one here. Self-described watchdog for homelessness billed taxpayers nearly $14,000 for a business class junket to Cairo. And that's from an access to information email. This is from Holly Donna Blacklocks here too. This is where her expenses were questioned. And she charged, this is Marie-Josée Houle. She makes about $213,000 a year as a housing advocate. Got to fly first class. She says the housing flew business class because economy was not available for the dates I requested. Cost of the trip, almost $14,000. Again, who cares, right? It's just taxpayer money.
Imagine the sausage rolls in business class. They must be on toothpicks or something, with caviar to dip.
And then more fraud, waste, abuse, incompetence, whatever you want to call it. We said before that for 2 years the administration of the dental program was $473 million. Well, they've got a new update. Cost to manage Canada Dental Care Program jumped nearly 9%, or almost $860 million since the program was launched, because that was for 2 years of it. So $860 million to manage the program. That's not to administer, that's not for the benefits, that's to manage the program. The health department disclosed the program has been audited, but would not release the findings. Wow, why would you? The audit resulted in recommendations for both Health Canada and benefits administrator. The health department wrote in a report to the Senate. Some actions in the response to these recommendations have already been implemented, but the report is confidential and intended solely for Health Canada and cannot be shared. An audit report? Why wouldn't you want to share the audit report and show us all the incompetence, waste? Administration costs in the first 3 years of the dental care program and to 2025 was, like I said, $473 million, according to the inquiry of the ministry. And costs since April 1st, an additional $386 million, for a grand total of almost $1 billion, $859 million, almost $860 million to date. And that doesn't include the 4.5 budgeted this year just for the benefits. That's just for the administration. Like you and I could administer the program. I'll do it for a third. It's absolutely just an abuse of taxpayer funds, an absolute abuse of taxpayer funds. Absolutely crazy.
It's bureaucratic capture, isn't it, really? As so much of Blacklock's is just kind of documents bureaucratic capture. Like that housing advocate, something that we just passed over, really. $213,000 a year just for a sinecure. This is a job that just doesn't matter. Nothing happens. The housing advocate. Who's ever even heard of the housing advocate? But it gets over $200,000 a year of your money.
And then when we highlight stuff like this, the lightning rod comes in there and says that we're all fake. These are government documents. These are actual documents from the government. And this is the thing. This is how they get, they just start screaming when you show information that's true. And they just say that we're, we're fake news and all this stuff, and absolute lunacy. So
sounds like somebody that we know, doesn't it? And somebody they don't like very much.
And then Scott Moe's defending his deal, obviously. Canada had no choice but to repeal the 100% tariff on Chinese battery electric vehicles. That's from Scott Moe. Moe acknowledged his province was the winner in the trade talks with Beijing, but denied it came at the expense of others. So obviously he's taking a little bit of heat for that. To say this is favoring one province over another, this is, again, remember they said Team Canada. I don't think we have much of a Team Canada. We have Alberta and BC in basically a cat fight. And now we have Saskatchewan and Ontario in basically a cat fight, and Ontario and Manitoba as well. I mean, and BC fights with everybody. Who doesn't BC fight with? David Eby blames everybody for everything. And
judges, even everybody, he will blame anybody.
He said Cabinet imposed the Chinese electric tariffs in reaction to predatory trade practices, according to Freeland. Now, she just matched Joe Biden. Workers in the auto sector currently face unfair competition. Well, China's been accused of dumping vehicles, and that's, and they do that. That's part of their MO, is they'll go in somewhere and subsidize and then dump and then destroy the industry and then take over. That's kind of their MO. It works for them, right?
Yep.
The
the Brazilian example, just read it. Like, there's loads of articles about it, loads of case studies on Brazil. Brazil is the case study. They went, Brazil had a lot of agricultural tech, machinery and things like that. That's one of the areas where the Chinese were just ruthless. They just stole it all, made it at a quarter of the price, flooded the Brazilian market and killed the indigenous, the native industry. And now they're just addicted to China and they're reliant on China. It's like that is like economic conquest. It's like economic warfare.
And why would we want whistleblowers? So Canada's whistleblowing regime could soon collapse, according to the Public Sector Integrity Commissioner of Canada, Harriet Soloway, who said her office needs an urgent injection of $6.7 million to survive. In the short term, an extra $14.3 million a year to secure its long-term viability. I'm going to guess which one department gets cut first, because they don't like whistleblowers. Remember when we did that story on whistleblowing, and the whistleblowers were sometimes transferred to different departments, told not to whistleblow, all those things. She said there has been an unprecedented amount of wrongdoing allegations in recent months, as well as reprisals against whistleblowers. Imagine that. She added, in face of the current situation, I cannot guarantee the allegations of wrongdoing reprisals will be investigated in a timely manner. So, press gets no access, cripple the media with the Online News Act. Now let's get rid of the watchdogs and whistleblowing. Hey, and also give the MPs the ability to give immunity to other corporations and themselves for deals. Sounds perfect. Sounds like China.
It sounds like the beloved basic dictatorship, doesn't it? But it's I mean, the transparency, in all seriousness, the transparency question, I feel like that's not mentioned enough. It is atrocious, really, isn't it? This government's record. Well, this government and the previous government, because this is a new government.
They won't even answer emails. Like, I mean, they provide very little access to media. Even the government-funded media, even CBC gets very little access. And then you can't get in there. Like, I mean, we in Kelowna here, we got access to a thing because we found out where it was. They didn't tell us. We went there, and we were told we were allowed one question, no follow-up. It's just, and they don't answer emails. We send relentless emails. They don't get answered.
Eventually, we've succeeded in getting answers eventually after many emails where they say no without any explanation.
The Senate Banking Committee yesterday endorsed a campaign proposal by opposition leader Pierre Poilievre to compel rollbacks in municipal development charges as a condition of receiving federal aid. 10 of 13 senators on the committee are Liberal appointees. Imagine that. The committee notes federal
funding. They just dominate the Senate, don't they? Complete dominance.
Thank you, Justin Trudeau. And this is part of his platform. He was saying, they got to cut back on these fees, like so much money in building a house is in fees and DCCs, all that kind of stuff, and it's just crazy. And opposition and Pierre Poilievre in his 2025 campaign proposed a 50-50 cost sharing program with municipalities that cut development costs to a max of $50,000 per home. Cities charging more than $50,000 include Ottawa, $78,000, Calgary, $93,000, Vancouver, $104,000, Saskatoon at $112,000, Toronto at $195,000. That's just for the DCC.
That's insane, isn't it? Saskatoon.
DCCs. Yeah.
What are they doing in Saskatoon now?
And I believe last time I talked to Renee, and she's coming on today. I think it's at 12:30. I believe we're on with Beyond the Ballot. 1:30 today, and last time I talked to her, they still hadn't enacted that GST break for first-time homebuyers. But CBC did get their money. You've got to remember that CBC definitely gets their money first. It's like they're there at the check writing. They're just like, hey, let's make sure this check gets written. Poilievre says he won't run in Battle River Crowfoot in the next election. He says that, and that the parties confirmed that Poilievre was parachuted into that riding after losing his long-held seat in Ottawa. It said Poilievre will be running in another Tory-safe seat. Damien Kirk, who resigned to allow Poilievre to take over the riding, will return as the party's candidate. And they're just not saying where Pierre will run yet.
Yes. I would assume his riding of Carleton used to be a lot more rural than it's become now. I mean, there's loads of new builds in his riding, and obviously they preferred the Liberal Party, the new arrivals. So I assume what he's going to do is just there's a few ridings just next to Carleton. I think he's probably going to pick one of them, isn't he? Which whoever's like going to retire, whoever feels like leaving, he's just going to do that because he lives in Greeley, I think, like near Manatee, so south of Ottawa. He's lived there for 20 years. He obviously doesn't want to move. So I would be astonished if he was going to pick anywhere but Ottawa for his next riding.
And the Navy, they want into the schools now. The Navy said it will pay the Royal Canadian Geographic Society $300,000 to develop a Navy-themed lessons plans for school children. It follows declining membership in youth programs like the Royal Canadian Sea Cadets. The Royal Canadian Geographic Society will develop, publish, and distribute Navy-themed lessons plans, a giant floor map, and virtual class engagements for students. The Royal Canadian Navy wrote in an advance contract award notice that this will be, they will also provide access to lesson materials and accompanying teaching tools, which should align with provincial and territorial curriculum requirements. And this will be given to grade 9 and 10 levels across Canada. Don't they need to build some ships first? Or are we going to outsource those to China like we did the BC ferries? Like a majority
It's
of
so
children.
funny. It's just like it blows my mind, because the way to get kids excited is to talk about like naval heroes and things like that. Like in Britain, they talk about things like this in Britain. Britain has literally the world's greatest naval hero, like in the history of naval warfare, in Horatio Nelson, somebody that they don't really talk about because it's embarrassing for them, because he was, he's a man from the 18th and 19th centuries and had views that they don't agree with now. So he's kind of just been, I mean, sometimes they condemn him as like slaveholder adjacent and things like that. It's like, how are you gonna instill patriotism and get people excited about something like the Navy unless you look back at the old heroes, and celebrate the old heroes? But I can guarantee that it'll be none of that, will it? This training program or theme.
Misconceptions, particularly regarding the perceived militaristic nature of the program, as well as the time commitment required, in the sense that cadets is for a specific type of person driving down interest in joining. And then they said even Army, Navy, and Air Force cadet branches at the time had about 50,000 members compared to Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. I mean, there was a time in Canada here just recently when they didn't even like Girl Guides and Boy Scouts, and they said it was too militaristic. And my buddy was, I think he was an air cadet. And they've really downplayed those things because they want kids doing other things. And now all of a sudden they realize, oops. Oopsie. They made the military a bad thing in Canada.
In general, though, Canada should be a naval power. Really, I mean, that's what the priority should be. Should be ships and the Navy. I mean, we hear that stats around, don't we, about the largest, the largest coastline in the world.
Is that the reason? Part of it? And an Air Force.
You would think so.
Handy
but
too.
Also, if we want to, if we're going to be in a world where America is no longer a benign hegemon, as Mark Carney is, prognosticating, and the sea lanes are no longer going to be guarded, if we want to do business with China, maybe we should have a navy to protect those ships that we want to send to the Chinese, or indeed the Europeans. But you would think, I mean, Canada is not going to be a land power anytime soon, is it? I mean, the population, say 41.5 million people, quite a lot of those people are temporary residents and migrants anyway, who I don't think you should count when you're talking about defense. Don't think they're going to join the military, are they?
Well, they tried to get them to join. They tried to get immigrants. Nobody else would join.
Yeah. So focus on the Navy and the Air Force, I would say. Don't bother with that. I mean, get some dog sleds in the north, but don't try and be the next Prussian Empire.
Please like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, consider contributing to independent journalism. Do what you can, and the big thing is just help us get this out to more people, right? Help us to share this to a bigger, wider audience, And of course, the bots will come every now and then, but if it gets nasty out there, you can hit ignore yourself, because it's the comments. We read all the comments, and we love the comments, and we're probably one of the few outlets that actually still encourage comments, where they shut you off. In other ones, you can't comment on CBC and all that kind of stuff. They don't want to hear from you.
Lightning Rod will be watching this now. His face will be red. Like, but I can't comment. Ugh.
Well, because he was being a nasty boy.
He was being quite nasty.
Mark Carney said in May 13, 2025, you can judge him at the grocery store. Well, Judgment Day is here. Food inflation, we led the G7. 6.2. We lead. Judgment Day is here.
But I mean, like we've said a million times, where are the results anywhere?
Yeah,
You know, not only do we not have better grocery prices, I went and bought some cherry tomatoes yesterday. I know people probably aren't interested in this. They've got their own grocery tales. But like literally a handful of cherry tomatoes. Like I could have held it in my fist like that. It was $5. I mean, what? $5 for a handful of cherry tomatoes? It's just, if we're going to judge them on grocery prices, then the pitchforks are going to be out, you know?
You should have went to the front counter with that accent of yours and said, more, please.
Please, sir, can I have some cherry tomatoes? The Keir Starmer accent. We're going to get the cherry tomatoes. They're going to be cheap.
So here's food prices, 6.2, double that of the United States of America. Coffee up 30%, beef up 17%. I mean, I was standing there in the store watching people look in the meat counter. And it breaks my heart. You watch them looking in the meat counter like it's a luxury item and they know they can't afford it. That's Canada. This is what's wrong. Ian talked about this, the weakness of leadership. It's been now close to 11 years of weakness of leadership, and that's both from the BC NDP and the federal Liberals. Weakness of leadership. We're sitting on a pile of wealth. We wouldn't be in this situation. We wouldn't be at the knees of Donald Trump or begging on our knees if we hadn't done this to ourselves. We did this to ourselves. And even if we want to sell energy to China, like how? How? That was the question. Spain's actually begging us to buy some LNG. How? Like it sounds like an owl. Canada sounds like an owl country right now. Everything is just like, who can we sell it to? Because we can't even get it to the border or to the ports.
Exactly. And sometimes we forget. We sometimes forget to mention this. This is how, like, we're such abused slaves, aren't we? That we sometimes just forget our own slavery. But we literally don't, to all intents and purposes, in the East, we don't really have a serious, like, Eastern port. I mean, when it comes to natural resources, at least. Because a certain special interest group, the most special of all special interest groups in this country, Quebec or Montreal, said no. So we just don't have it. We don't even talk about it. You know, talk about Spain wanting our LNG or even oil. Can you imagine sending oil over there? It's just like we literally don't even talk about it because we're such wretched little slaves that we know our place. We know it's like, no, we're not even gonna talk about
the biggest
sending oil and gas out of Montreal, mate. Like, shut up.
Carney's Liberals survive in Canada because of the media and the lack of access. Like, they let us sit down with Mark Carney. They don't provide access, and the media, the CBC, I mean, we see how the CBC acts. You see that. They're basically an arm of the government. And the other ones are at the begging bowl there with their hands out there. CTV just laid off another 700 and said they need more money from the government. like they have to, one, provide access. They are the servants of the people. They do not believe they are the servants of the people. They believe they are the elites. That's what the WEF is. What Klaus Schwab at the beginning of the thing said, all of the power is in this room. No, it's not. Yeah. The power is in the people. The power is in the people. And they've figured out a way to take it away little by little here in Canada. And by giving MPs the ability not to face the law, and then the MPs giving the ability to corporations not to face the law, that is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. But so much, I mean, people are talking here in the comments, they're talking about gardening. Somebody said, because of how expensive, I guess, when I was talking about tomatoes or something like that, or they're talking about groceries, and they're saying learn to garden, then somebody says you can't do it in the winter. But the funny thing is, nowadays you can, and the Dutch are the absolute masters of this. The Dutch are one of the world's, the Netherlands is an agricultural powerhouse, despite the fact that you can't even see it on a map because it's so tiny. And that's because they use greenhouses. Yeah. Like, look, I would recommend you look at some of the pictures. It's crazy. It's just like a whole landscape of
well, we have a garden tower.
Greenhouses. But to do that, you need energy. As we've often said, we could theoretically in Canada, we could be the masters of that. We could be the best in the world when it comes to growing things in greenhouses because we have all the energy in the world and a relatively small population. We could fuel all of that, but yet again, that's another area we don't seem to be that interested in. We don't want to be super abundant in energy for some
Well,
reason, but that's what it would allow.
Here you go with energy. Carney will, new carbon tax will add 17 cents a liter at the pump. And this is what I mean. Like, we suppress our energy. We punish people for using energy. We literally punish people for using energy here in Canada. And that's, again, we're not going to play the clip, but it's just like people feeling the pain at the pumps. And they're telling you again, this doesn't add to inflation. They told us last time the carbon tax doesn't add to inflation. Then, after they took it off, Mark Carney said, well, look what we did. We drove down inflation by removing the carbon tax. And then we put on this hidden carbon tax. Okay. And then here's, this is the best part here. China now. China, listen to this. We're going to listen. You can watch, you have to watch the subtitles here.
应当人人平等，极少数国家不应当有基于实力的特权。世界不能重新回弱强势的丛林法治。
That's a good. You get the idea, though, right? You know, like China's.
We cannot return to the law of the jungle, says the lion.
That's right. Says the lion, right? Says the lion.
But this is why the Chinese are.
Says the dragon more
funny.
like it, right? Says the dragon more like it.
Yeah.
Right? Come on in.
And it's like, P.S.
In.
We want Taiwan.
Come on into my den. And also in that pitch there, they talked about how, you know, like China is going to lead the climate agenda. Yeah, by selling you solar panels and wind farms while they fired up coal plants. And like Ian says, they'll literally get 1 million people to ride a bicycle to generate energy. They will use everything they can to generate energy. But they're trying to convince the rest of the world to weaken them to just use solar panels and windmills.
And like I said the other day, something that doesn't get said enough, that's China's biggest weakness, is that they don't have enough oil. That is literally their biggest weakness. All of their strategizing and all of the American, you know, talk about models of the Americans invading Canada. All of the war games related to China and the US are about blocking the sort of chokeholds around the world, like the Malacca Strait, that the Chinese need to get energy, particularly from the Middle East. And that's the theory of how it will go. The Americans will just blockade, you know, the Bab el Mandeb and all the rest of these like really sort of these choke points for where oil tankers go through. And then the Chinese are screwed because they're not self-sufficient in oil. That's how the theory goes. And it's not a coincidence that the Chinese are therefore pushing this, because it's very, very much in their interest. Like, why do you think the Chinese why are they driving electric vehicles? It's not because they love the planet. It's because that way they can drive electric vehicles, they can drive cars powered by coal, which they have, rather than having to drive a car powered by oil, which they don't have enough of. It's a lot of things. You know, the Chinese, the amount of times people go in to China, conversations on China, so gullible, you know. Like, the Chinese look after themselves. That's their priority. You always have to bear that in mind.
Here's DJT talking about what the Chinese have done to the European economy.
My landslide election victory, the United States avoided the catastrophic energy collapse which befell every European nation that pursued the Green New Scam, perhaps the greatest hoax in history. The Green New Scam, windmills all over the place, destroy your land, destroy your land. Every time that goes around, you lose $1,000. You're supposed to make money with energy, not lose money. Here in Europe, we've seen the fate that the radical left tried to impose on America. They tried very hard. Germany now generates 22% less electricity than it did in 2017. And it's not the current chancellor's fault. He's solving the problem. He's going to do a great job.
That's good.
But
Again, how can you argue against that? His comment about energy. He's literally talking about like he's talking in Newtonian physics almost there, isn't he? Like laws of thermodynamics. He's like saying energy's supposed to make money off energy. Not it's not supposed to cost you money. I mean, yeah, like that's the whole, when it comes to things like fusion energy, that's the whole thing. They're trying to get more energy out than they put in. That's when it'll be considered you know, a usable technology. It's so obvious, isn't it? And yet how true is it what he's saying? Like, we are putting more energy, like more resources into producing smaller amounts of energy. It's like, why would you do that? Obviously he uses money as a proxy there, but really we're talking about energy there, aren't we?
And we're going to talk here in Canada as Mark Carney gets back into Canada here. We're going to start hearing about CCUS, how we need to skin the cat and take a little bit off the fat off the cat there. When there's no fat left, we're going to talk about that later, but we'll get to that in a bit though. But here's Sam Cooper. I did a story there, and former senior Mountie, Carney's RCMP, Chinese police cooperation deal is a counterintelligence danger that risks sovereignty. And, like this is, the main point of this is, before this partnership deepens, this is in Sam's article, Canadians should depend on absolute restrictions on sharing information about Canadians and residents, clear human rights and transnational repression safeguards, independent oversight and transparency. They don't want that though. And a willingness to suspend cooperation when abuse risks emerge. For nearly 50 years, he said he worked with this cop said he worked with systems designed, however, imperfectly to balance security and liberty. In Asia, I saw what happens when the balance does not exist. The PRC, the People's Republic of China, has shown repeatedly that human rights, rule of law, and individual protection are subordinate to the state power. The state power is number one.
As we've seen it over and over again.
And this is who we're siding up against. The state power. I mean, again, you got to remember in America, there's so many checks and balances in the United States government. That's why Trump is having some trouble. They've got the judiciary, they got the Senate, they got the Congress, they got a whole bunch of things. They don't have that in China. They have one guy that says tomorrow. I mean, Mark Carney has praised them, and so has Justin Trudeau, because they get things done, right? Because they just steamroll over things. They just say, this is the way it is. There is tons of checks and balances with the United States government. And like Ian said yesterday, Donald Trump may not be there very long. Literally, he will be there for another 3 years at the max. That's
and Xi, unless he has a heart attack or something, he'll still be there.
Yeah, forever until
until his last breath.
President Putin and Xi were walking along, and they said we can live forever with the new technology. So literally, maybe forever with them.
They did have that conversation, didn't they? It was a hot mic moment. Very strange, but God knows what kind of like cloning technology and all sorts the Chinese are working on to keep Xi around forever.
So listen carefully and use your common sense. Listen to the rhetoric and just use your common sense when they're telling you these things, and just turn off the CBC because they're just telling you stuff. Okay, here's a piece from the Globe and Mail talking about climate change. Climate change, this is in 2012, by the way. Climate change threatens outdoor hockey in Canada. Ooh, get scared. The article was published more than 13 years ago. Any ice in Ottawa today?
Sure is. It's freezing cold.
According to Al Gore, the polar ice caps are melted already. These people use it to fill their pockets, absolutely fill their pockets. And then another piece here, the problem ultimately is in Beijing is an immoral partner, but that is unreliable. It's a dangerous one. It is a crouching tiger or a fire-breathing dragon. And then this was from Juno News saying Rosemary Barton, and I watched this clip from Rosemary Barton, said that China is a better and more reliable trade partner in the United States. Based on what, Rosie? Based on what? And then they're going to build a super embassy. We're trying to go through some stuff because we've got a little bit left.
We talked about that, didn't we, by the way? So we've got, you can see our take on Rosie there. I think that was yesterday.
Yeah, it was with the bucket of sausage rolls. Yeah,
that's a very, very good line. That.
And then they're going to open up a super embassy in England too.
Yeah, well, that's another area that I was going to say that earlier about whenever there's like during the financial crash we saw this, 2007, 2008. But whenever there's like choppy water, a lot of countries defect from the Western group. And they go off, or the Western coalition or whatever, and they go off to China. It's always China, and it's always the same arguments. Like, well, it's a big economy, and they grow fast, and all the rest of it. And they're preyed upon. They become prey, and that's what's happened with the British. They've given them this giga embassy, like gigantic embassy next to the Tower of London, just needlessly huge, right next to essential, data. Wires and things like that underground where financial data is transferred through these.
But it's also a symbol of power for the Chinese government too, right? They just stuck a stick. King Arthur would have been proud. They stuck a stick right there in the heart of London.
Well, that's what the Tower of London is. If you know, for those of you out there who know your history, the Tower of London was built by the Normans and it was a way to say after the conquest, and it was a way to say you're conquered. You are our peasants, and it's very like if you go to the Tower of London, it's a very sort of intimidating building, intimidating architecture, and that was its purpose. So it's quite interesting that they've chose to build it there. But either way, the point I'm making is both the Canadians and the British have gone to the Chinese for succor when the Americans are having a bit of a bender, having a wild one, and we've gone to China again. And as we saw 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when there were similar flirtations, doesn't really work out well. Like, look what the last one ended with the Meng Wanzhou fiasco and this attempt to really damage the canola sector. Like, they're not a reliable partner anyway, just to contradict Rosemary Barton once again.
And I can tell you right now, Ian and I, what we do right here, I don't think we could do this in China. Do you know what I mean?
You don't think? Well, unless we were talking about like Taiwan will be ours, that kind of thing all the time.
I mean, we wouldn't be allowed to do it. And this piece here from this young lady saying basically if she goes into that room, she'll never come out. And a lot of people fled Chinese, the authoritarian government. And that has to be remembered as we cozy up, Rosemary. Sell your soul, Rosemary, for a bucket of sausage rolls. Here's Bill Gates. He's another guy that doesn't get a lot of, he's lost a lot of credibility. Now he's talking about in the World Economic Forum that artificially, he's going to run some healthcare things. I'm not lining up with Bill. I can tell you that for nothing. You can keep your
But
stuff.
he's sensible now, isn't he? He's come around. Everyone loves him again.
We're going to try to power through some of this stuff. Alberta facing its toughest fiscal situation since COVID. Yeah, like the Venezuelan oil, like we need to get our oil to market. Because right now, it's going to be a tougher sell to the Americans when they're going to get, they got some stuff going on in Venezuela there that has more oil than we got. Come on.
More oil than anyone. If that's true. I mean, I've read some interesting critiques of that figure, 300 billion barrels or whatever. Some people suggesting that is potentially a massive overestimate. But either way, they've got a load of oil and it's heavy oil. So
yeah, same stuff.
It should be very much a concern for us.
We got a little BC stuff here, just a quick one here, BC with EB.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Yeah, EB says that new markets reforms will help forestry, but results take time. Like, it didn't take much time to destroy it. Like, I mean, forestry in a shambles. In a shambles. We did so many interviews on it. I don't go through this whole thing, but we've interviewed the forest minister, we've interviewed the industry, we've interviewed so many people on forestry. And this was a problem way before Donald Trump. And also forest management here, the wildfires. I mean, they get on the podium and they talk about climate change every time, when it was lots of time was forestry mismanagement. Now he's saying, though, that with time, energy, and commitment, the province beleaguered forest sector can be made into a sustainable industry. And that's after he made hailing a deal with China on wood construction. The premier said expanding into new markets alongside solving long-standing structural permitting issues and guaranteeing predictable land access. These are all issues that you had control over. I talked to him, I interviewed him, and said, you can't even get permits. He said, yeah, we recognize that, we're going to work on it. Like, why let's just walk down the other end of the hallway, sign a piece of paper and say, like, get permits out. Like, it's weakness of leadership.
The truth is, or at least a lot of it is related to what's called like the first relationship with the First Nations, isn't it? A lot of it, it can boil down to that. And if it's not the First Nations, it's the other very powerful lobby in British Columbia, which is the sort of urban green people who just, as you've said before, they think that every tree in British Columbia is like some gorgeous Douglas fir from Stanley Park or something like that, rather than the fact that, they're not very pretty, a lot of them out there, are they? And they're not very old either. They're not special. They're just pines. They're just trees.
Well, we're going to power through the rest of this. We're into international news. We got a little bit here.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Well, Greenland was also a topic at Davos there, and Trump says he will not use force, though. And I watched this whole speech, but he does say that he wants it, and he says NATO never does anything for him. or for the Americans, and they're asking for it. And they actually controlled Greenland in the Second World War. They rescued it when the Denmark lost it to the Germans. And basically in that speech he said, and I'm not going to play it because you can go watch the whole thing, that he said, we want a piece, they want it for the Golden Dome. And he's saying they want it, and they're going to make an offer for it. I think there's negotiating for some cash. And I've watched some clips where a lot of the people from Greenland are saying, yes, we want it. I mean, I imagine there's both sides of that. You know, like if you watch CBC, not like that. If you watch some of the other independent media, you'll see some of that. You know what I mean? Like, definitely where you're watching is where you're going to get a different piece of that news, though. But Greenland, they didn't really go too much into Greenland, even in the questions. I mean, I'm sure it was a friendly interview, or they didn't get too heated in it. But I did see a couple of reporters going at Donald Trump as he's walking, because he always takes questions when he's walking. Unlike most of the other leaders, they don't take questions when they're walking. Trump will just basically answer anybody. And then
He
Trump
did say,
also,
though, I mean, the big reveal on that was he said, I won't use force. That was kind of his. So he took a lot of the oxygen out of the argument, I think, because that's what a lot of people have been asking him about.
Yeah, I mean, that's that ramping up, just like they're protecting. But all that stuff was rhetoric too, because they were just there to show that they're protecting Greenland. That was it. It wasn't there to fight the Americans. The Americans were there too. Like, I mean, how are you going to fight the Americans? Like, give your head a shake, right? 8 troops show up from Germany. Like, what? Fight what? Like, come on. Like,
one from
ridiculous.
Britain
One.
literally sent one.
Just like a comedy show. The media should be embarrassed of itself. Here's Trump talking about the UK energy policies.
Prices are 64% higher. The United Kingdom produces just 1/3 of the total energy from all sources that it did in 1999. Think of that, 1/3. And they're sitting on top of the North Sea, one of the greatest reserves anywhere in the world, but they don't use it. And that's one reason why their energy has reached catastrophically low levels with equally high prices. High prices, very low levels. Think of that, 1/3. And you're sitting on top of the North Sea, and they like to say, well, you know, that's depleted. It's not depleted. It's got 500 years. They haven't even found the oil. The North Sea is...
That's good. I mean, England has, again, with Europe and Canada, has self-sabotaged themselves in their energy policies. I mean, energy is everything. I mean, every one of them have weakened themselves because of bad energy policies. Every one of them.
And they've done it while patting themselves on the back. As Howard Lutnick said about offshoring, sending your industry to China. And he's saying that, you know, it's a very stupid thing to have done. I think most people agree with that now. But the British are still doing that, and they're still applauding themselves. They're still patting themselves on the back, and they're saying we're one step closer to net zero. Now that we've cleared out this last remnant of industry, which obviously requires energy and therefore emits CO2. It's like, well, one step closer. We're going to do it, and in the process, destroy the country, and you know, destroy the standard of living, destroy it geopolitically, so that it can no longer compete with other countries. Or, I mean, it's an absolute catastrophe.
How anybody with even a shred of common sense can listen to Rosemary Barton says that China's a better partner? You got to look at China's history. Look at what China does. It's an authoritarian government with one person standing at the top that could be there forever, according to his joke with Putin. And he says there's no consequences, or no, like, they have an agreement with Russia. Like, they're the biggest allies right now. And that's who you want to sidle up to? That China has shown what they've done to economies. I mean, it's all over the place. Like, the evidence is there. It's plain as day. And this is what you're doing. It's just...
Another example is Germany. Like, look at Germany. They banked on the idea that they could sell Mercedes-Benzes and BMWs and all the rest of it into China, make loads of money forever. That hasn't really worked out, has it? They've stolen German IP, and Volkswagen, obviously. They've stolen German IP, and they've undercut them.
And guess what else? Guess what else? They also, now the factories are closing there, and the Chinese, they just take over the factories and move in a new EV maker. This is like, thanks for the factory that the Germans paid for.
Thanks for all the kit. Yeah. And sometimes they would also hire locally, so they're just like, thanks for the workers and the brain power. I mean, dearie me, the fact that people are still falling for that trick, it's What can you do? It's like they're like mice going to get the cheese.
With what Russia's doing and China's doing, the Arctic is all important, and there's a good article out there called "The Arctic Smokescreen." You can go and read it if you want. I won't get into it too much because we're running out of time here today. But it is like the missiles are going over the top of the Earth if they ever start firing missiles. The Golden Dome, all that kind of stuff makes a lot of sense. And so all this other stuff is just posturing, and the media blowing stuff out of concern because of their TDS and all that stuff. But again, listen to who speaks plainly and clearly, and who speaks where you can't understand them. Do you trust the person that speaks clearly and plainly, or do you trust the person that speaks with rhetoric? And then look at the actions. Again, the actions are where you see the truth, right? Follow the actions. And here's the mother of all deals. Like, she's speaking some language here. This is Ursula again talking about the mother of all deals. Listen in.
The next weekend, I will travel to India. There's still work to do, but we are on the cusp of a historic trade agreement. Indeed, some call it the mother of all deals.
That's good enough. You know how many people have tried to do a deal with India?
Bureaucracies, protectionist bureaucracies, going to merge their economies. Scary.
Nobody gets a deal done with India. It's like the hardest place to get any deals done. But anyway, let's see.
And they always attach. India always attaches visas to any deal. And as you may, if you've checked in on European news in the last 20 years, you may be aware that the Europeans are not very fond of immigration. So there's going to be visas attached to that, and there's going to be yet more populist uprisings.
We're going to skip the next one with Christine Lagarde saying the same thing. But here's Democrats are starting to flip to Trump. Let's listen to this.
There's that saying, Trump was right about everything, and that's kind of how I'm feeling right now.
This breakfast conversation, our sixth visit with Betsy Sarcone, dating back to August 2023. Her shift, beyond dramatic. A DeSantis, then a Haley voter, said she would vote for Joe Biden if Trump won the Republican nomination. But she changed her mind.
I think Biden probably changed me more than Trump. I think watching nothing be done, for 4 years about an open border.
Now she gives Trump an A-, loves the immigration crackdown, just closed a big real estate sale, and thinks the economy is picking up.
That's good.
Sarcone.
That's from CNN. That would have been painful for them to do that story, but kudos to them for actually doing it, I guess, right?
I'm also not sure what that tells you really about anything. I mean, the polls that I've seen, if you still believe in polls these days, the polls I've seen don't look good for the Republican Party. So,
well,
I don't know.
Trump walked out there yesterday and he talked for 2 hours almost there. He brought out a big whack of paper there. His 365 days, that was our headline there. 365 days. Trumplandia. He walked out there and waved out his accomplishments, and then some of the accomplishments, we're not going to play any clips here though because we're running out of time. Their GDP growth has been the numbers have been pretty good. The oil price is 20% lower. I mean, the gasoline prices are way down there in the United States, and that's some below $2 in some places in the United States, but I think the average price is about $2.50. Unemployment below half of what Canada's is, almost at 4.5. Stock market's at, breaking records every day. Inflation is still low, even though all the trade things. Trade deficit's lowest. Crime rate dropping. People dying from fentanyl, way down. And legal immigration, they've closed that border. Remember that border? They said that it was impossible to close unless the Republicans voted for it. Well, they seem to have got the border closed. They sealed that up pretty good. Actually, to the point where a lot of those people are coming to Canada for that the border stuff there. We're going to do some other stuff in here, but like I said, we're a little long in the tooth here. Well, the other one that we will cover off is the Board of Peace that Trump was throwing that out there, and he's asking nations to join. He said he's got like 55 nations. Canada said, I think Carney said yeah, and then Francois said no. So it's $1 billion to join this Board of Peace, which is basically, it seems like another UN, isn't it? Like it's this Board of Peace, and you have to cough up $1 billion to join this. But it sounds like he's getting quite a few people to join, including Russia. And And Zelensky said he won't join. I don't know where Zelensky would get the money. Did you have to get it from Canada to give it the $1 billion? How does Zelensky get money?
Probably. But then Canada said, or Champagne said, they're not going to pay for it.
Do you know what I mean?
Also, Champagne was also trying to say, like, a lot of this not been settled yet, because he was being asked about whether he should join an organization with Putin in it. And he was trying to be like, chill out, guys.
Yeah, just like Zelensky, if he joins, he's like, yeah, I'll join. Christia, write a check. Oh, yeah, I don't know. And then, yeah, I think we'll cover it off there. I mean, there's so much today already. And yeah, we guys, as you get some of the Moose on the Loose, share this with the Moose on the Loose there too. And if you can get this out to as many people as you can, get people to watch, share, subscribe. We do things a little differently, and I know that Moose on the Loose focuses on a few things. We're trying to cover the news that's out there and give you a different perspective as opposed to, the narrative that you're supposed to have there, because again, the only sausage rolls we've got so far are the sausage rolls from the person from Dawson Creek. And
and they look like the real deal.
It was a damn fine sausage roll. I think it was bought here in town because I don't think it traveled all the way from Dawson Creek, but because it was pretty fresh. And there you go. There's the sausage rolls.
Just look at that. Look at that pastry.
Anyway, we are on. We did start a TikTok account and we did start an X account too, separate from our Kelowna Now one. And so if you could find us there, we'll start putting that stuff up there. We're going to create a web page there where you can find and share some of the stuff. I am on LinkedIn as well. You can find me at Jim Check on LinkedIn. And again, like, share, subscribe, ring that bell, put this out there. And we do cut the show up in little clips too, because I know this 2 hours is a long bit, but some people love it. And we really appreciate the people that come back on a daily basis. And we see quite a few people who recognize the names. Brett, obviously, there all the time. Brett, thank you for
Big Brett, Heidi as well,
and I don't know how to. She's always here. Clojo, I'm not sure what her real name is, but Clojo, 88. She's always here too, and we really appreciate her. And La Rosa, we don't have their real names, but thank you.
La Rosa for Trump. Yeah.
There you go. And thank you. Oh, Carolyn, there you go, Carolyn. Thank you. And I'll push it out when you go surfing. Awesome. Thank you. And we're back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And I have Renee Merrifield with Beyond the Ballot. That's at 1:30 today. We should have to switch up a couple things. So there you go. And there we go. And thank you for watching Now Media.